I'm Lucy from Bookaxe and I'm here today with our final two Man Booker Prize reviews. So we are finally at the business end of the Man Booker Bookaxe month, if you want to call it that. We should have called it that from the very start, shouldn't we? There you go. So we're finally here. And I don't know about you, but at times this has felt like a little bit of a long month because none of the books have got me really excited. Even though I thought, there was a lot of good in there, nothing has blown my socks off. But I'm here to talk about the very last two books that we had to cover. And maybe, just maybe, there's something to get excited about in there. Shall we see? The first book that I'm going to talk to you about is this beast, The Overstory by Richard Powers. Now, this is a book, as the cover suggests, that is all about trees. It is an epic book in pretty much every sense of the word. It's got a lot of pages, it's epically long, but it's also epically ambitious in its content. So this book has 9 main characters. That's right, 9 characters through which Richard Powers tells his epic story about trees, pretty much equally split. So there is a lot of people to get to know in this book. And in fact, the first section pretty much reads like a book of 9 short stories pretty much about these individuals. So we meet them one by one in the first section of this book and learn what their relationship is to trees. So each of these people has something in their life which ties them really profoundly to trees. So that ranges from the scientist who has dedicated her entire life to researching them, to the woman who used to go camping with her father and their relationship was sort of built around the forest and he's died now, so that's very important to her, down to the guy who fell out of a tree as a child and is now paralysed, and that has shaped his life. So they're all really different stories that these individuals have that link them closely to trees. And the first, it's well over 100 pages, 150 pages, maybe even more, is almost like this book in itself of introducing you to each of these people. And then the rest of the book is sort of how their narratives start to cross, sometimes in really direct ways and sometimes in sort of much more subtle and tenuous ways. But basically, they're all on this journey, really, to find a way to deal with the environmental catastrophe that is going on in the world today. So, to different degrees, to varying degrees, fighting for the rights, I guess, of trees and sort of the preservation of forests and things like that. When I first heard the premise of this book, gotta be honest, I thought, it's going to be a little bit boring and quite possibly very pretentious. It is a teeny tiny little bit pretentious, but the epicness of this book sort of elevates it above me not really caring about that pretentiousness, because it is epic in the level of passion and conviction that Powers pours into this book. For me, that is the absolute strength of it. He absolutely tells this wonderful environmental story in such rich detail. The detail about trees is just flabbergasting. And also what I loved was the detail about history, sort of modern history in America where it's set. Sort of taking you, I'm going to use the word epic again, I'm sorry, there's a lot of epicness going on in here, from sort of centuries past, I can't remember the precise century, right up through to modern times where trees are this constant in the world, sort of standing tall and tutting at us humans really and everything that we're getting up to, and trying to endure us whilst all this history happens around them. And what Powers does brilliantly is weave in these details of sort of nature and the trees with history and politics and cultural points of reference absolutely perfectly and seamlessly, and bring this just richness to life. I really, really, really liked that. Did I love the book overall? Love is a very strong word. I really do think that out of all the books that I had read so far, this was the most bookery by a landslide. This was the book that I was like, yes, I understand why this is here. It felt so complete and well realised, and you know, Powers has achieved everything that he set out to achieve in this book. I really do believe that, and I think all of the others in some way fell a little bit short of what they were trying to achieve. So in that sense, I have an awful lot of respect for this book. It did, however, go on just a little bit too long for my liking. It was, I'm going to say epic again, it was epic, it was long, and for me, I think some of it could have been cut down a little bit. Some of the characters were more engaging than others, a little bit more rounded than others to my mind. And the other thing which didn't knock my socks off is you can hear sort of the moral authority of Powers through each of these characters. You can sort of kind of hear him sermonizing a little bit. And whilst I don't object to that in principle, you know, 550 plus pages is quite a long time to be sermonized at. It was just a little bit too much for me. I think if this book was about a subject that was closer to my heart, that makes me sound like I don't care about trees. Oh God, who doesn't care about trees? I do care about trees, but you know, 550 pages is a little bit too much. But I think I wanted it to be about a different subject, I guess. I think that this book, if it's not on the shortlist, I will eat my hat, goodness me. So overall, I think that this is a book that is going to absolutely speak to some people, that is just going to strike a chord and is going to stay with them and is going to be truly, truly memorable, because it is so excellently executed. It truly is. And of all the books that I have read from my half of the long list, it absolutely was a cut above the rest in terms of just pure execution. So I didn't love it on a personal level, but I absolutely appreciate how incredibly well done it is as a book. Now that kind of leads me on pretty well to the last book that I read. So this is my 8th book off the long list. Scott in the end has read 5 and I have read 8. And this was actually one that was on his side of the drawer, but you know, life, I pinched it. But the reason I said I didn't love the Overstory, despite it being, you know, an incredibly good book, and the reason that I definitely really haven't loved any of the other books is because they've sort of, you know, spoke to me on a certain level. They've sort of hit me in the head, but nothing has hit me in the heart. And I've just been so desperately wanting one of these books, you know, to just punch me in the chest, to hit me in the heart, to get me truly excited. And folks, at long last, it's happened, because I read Normal People by Sally Rooney. Now actually, this was one I wasn't really too fussed about reading, but boy am I glad that I did. I think all I knew about it before I read it was that it was sort of a love story set in rural Ireland. And typically I say I don't like love stories, but more and more, I think actually I do quite like love stories. It is Eleanor and Park crossed with One Day, crossed with Ross and Rachel, made a lot more literary and a lot more dark, and with a whole lot of sex as well going on in there. And it is really, really good. So it is absolutely, totally and utterly a will they, won't they love story. Connell and Marianne both grow up in a small rural town in Ireland. Connell is from a not well-off family, from a single mother family, and Marianne is sort of known for being the rich girl. She's also the incredibly unpopular girl that no one at school really likes or wants to be anywhere near. Whereas Connell, he's the cool kid. But somehow these two sort of come together without anyone really knowing what they're up to, and they start this really, really intense relationship. And we then follow them over sort of a decade? Well, it's definitely a good few years of this on-off relationship that deals with their own insecurities, but also sort of the pressures of life around them. And initially, sort of those pressures are a lot around sort of that sort of social divide, but less and less that becomes important as the narrative progresses. And what does become important is like their own emotional internal stories. That is what is absolutely fabulous in this novel. Rooney has created what I think is just a really, really timeless love story. So it's set in, I think it starts 2011 and maybe goes up to 2016, something like that. But it's not really rooted in that time, because we are looking at the nature of love, I guess, as being totally universal. So the anxiety and the terror of it at the same time as this total fearlessness, and you know, the wonder and the pain, the cruelty is what she does just exquisitely. There is just this excruciating, exquisite sort of casual cruelty that runs all the way through between Connell and Marianne and their interactions with each other, but also, you know, how sort of the society and people around them throw everything at them unwittingly, I guess, but they keep coming back to each other and lifting each other up before something, quite often themselves, tears them back apart again. And I absolutely loved it. The prose is just so perceptive, and it's not embellished, it's not fluffy, it's not flowery, it gets straight to the point, but God, yeah, punch in the chest, it gets you. I really, really liked it. It also doesn't have that sort of really frustrating thing that sometimes comes with those will they, won't they love stories, around where you just think, oh, if you said what you meant, it would all just be solved. It isn't like that. It's so much more subtle and complex, because it's actually about people discovering who they are as well along the way. And the dialogue in which they do that is just so tragic and so witty and funny and warm at the same time, that you can't help but buy into it. If I had one complaint, I think complaint is a strong word. If I had one you know, niggle to mention, it would be that it is crystal clear to me what Connell sees in Marianne, but I'm not always entirely sure what Marianne sees in Connell, particularly at the start, other than the fact that he's popular, and we're continually sort of told that she doesn't actually care about those things. So it wasn't something that bugged me the whole way through, but at the start I did, because you kind of pick up in the middle of the story, I guess, where they already know each other and have this sort of distant friendship that they keep hush-hush. So to start with, I did sort of think, you know, what is it about him that she likes? But other than that, you know, it's a really great book. And actually, despite the fact that it's really painful and really tragic, it's actually also sort of devastatingly hopeful, because the whole way through you cannot help but just root for these people to you know, find each other but also find themselves. And I think that was the message that I took away overall, is that actually, you know, love, this is going to sound really corny, I'm not sure I want to say this out loud, love can not only help you change, but it can also help you be free to be the sort of person that you want to be. And on that really cringy note, I'm going to leave it there. This one, folks, I want to see this on the shortlist. More than that, you know, if push comes to shove, oh, Scott will tell me off for a shortlist discussion before it's time, but which do I want to win? Which do I want to win? Don't know, you have to wait and see. And that is it. That is the last of our Man Booker Prize reviews. We are going to come back and we're going to do a video where we have a little chit chat and talk about what we think is going to be on the shortlist, because obviously Scott's read some that I haven't read and vice versa. So we're going to see what we can come up with. If you have read these books, I would love to know your thoughts. I would also love to know your thoughts of what you think should be on that shortlist, or win. You know, you can throw that out there now if you'd like. You can put it out there. I won't judge you. And in the meantime, think that's all. Oh, we've got a book chat coming up as well, yeah. So please do come back soon, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.